Hey guys, Mike at ZL1 Addons. We're going to install our Mustang diffuser on a 2019 Mustang GT. This works on all quad tip factory models, so 18 and 22s, EcoBoost with the four tips, that works, or pretty much all the GTs. For this install, we will be using rib nuts, so you'll need to be drilling as well. You'll need a 1/4-inch drill bit, a 3/8 drill bit, a rib nut tool, and we'll be utilizing factory locations for some of the mounting. So this is a brief layout of how our hardware is going to look on when we fully install this. And we provide standard standoffs, aluminum standoffs for the factory locations. You actually have factory bolts that come down from the trunk that we're going to utilize and screw these into, then attach our metal section to that. So just a precaution, one side of the longer standoffs is a metric 6, which is what our factory threads are on the car, and the other side will be a 1/4-20, which we provide the hardware for that. So we're going to go ahead and take our longer rods, we're going to start with that and get them attached to the vehicle. So we'll be utilizing these 2 points on this plastic box here. There's a little bit of threads hanging down from there. Some vehicles have some longer than the other. The other side will be right here. They're about the same distance on back of the vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and thread the M6 side of the standoff into those pretty hand tight, so they won't be taken off anymore throughout the installation. So now we're going to proceed with our smallest standoff. This is the last one we're going to be installing on the vehicle. One side has a bolt going into it with a washer and a lock washer. One side has a nut with the threaded rod that stays on the stanchion as we put it on the vehicle. So we're going to remove the part that has the bolt, remove the nut and the washer, so we're exposed with just the threads. We're going to proceed to the vehicle and fish the washer and the nut from the top side. Should be able to get your finger in there. We got the rod, the washer on the top side, and the lock nut on the top side started. We're going to go ahead and just twist the standoff. And since the nut's a lock washer, we don't have to get a wrench on the other side. So we're going to get it centered. Fully tight. We're gonna may need to address this later. We might have to adjust it a little bit to fit the diffuser, but for now we're gonna get it tight where it doesn't move. So now that we have the standoffs installed on the car, we're gonna go ahead and go to this this bolt combination right here. We're gonna grab this Tinnerman clip and go to your vehicle. We're actually gonna utilize this factory plastic box. We're gonna use the rearmost hole right here. We're gonna put this hump going up. We're just gonna clip it in place, just like that. We have only 2 bolts on your vehicle. They're going to be these 2 7mm screws. We're going to go ahead and use a 7mm. You can use a ratchet or impact just like we are. Just pull them out. They're real short. We're going to replace them with our hardware later. So now that we have these 2 7mm screws removed, we're going to go ahead and grab our large silver screws, washer and spacer combination. We're going to probably need another assistant to help out. So we're going to go ahead and feed the screw through the bottom, then through the spacer on top, just like that, and get them positioned into those factory holes where we removed those screws earlier. Get a few turns in, and then we're going to do the next screw. We can feed the spacer through the top side. Might take a couple tries, but we'll eventually get it. Just like that. And we're just gonna leave them started just like that. We're not gonna tighten them down all the way yet because we still gotta mark other holes, and we're actually gonna take the diffuser off one more time to install our rib nuts, and then we'll be ready for final installation. We have the diffuser in place. We're gonna readdress this bolt combination. This originally had that C-clip that we installed on that box earlier. It has a 3/4-inch black spacer and a 1/4-20 1.5-inch bolt. We're gonna go ahead and you're gonna have to reach the spacer in through the top side. On top of this hole, it's a slotted hole that goes horizontally, and that goes to that Tinnerman clip that we installed earlier on that box. So you're gonna have to fish your hand all the way through the other side, preferably by the exhaust location right here, through the bottom, through the spacer and to the clip, and thread it in just like that. We're just gonna get it hand tight. We're not gonna tighten down yet because this still does have to come down, and we do have to install the rib nuts next. So now that we have these 3 bolt locations started, we're gonna go ahead and go back to the first 2 that you installed. You're gonna want to reference the fin to these curvatures on your rear diffuser and kind of get it as center as your eye can see, and tighten these down a good amount where they're not gonna move. So once you got a good idea of where it's gonna be, you can reference to these points like I said and tighten these 2 down. Next, we're gonna mark these next holes that are next out on these diffusers. They actually attach to these fins right here. And how we do that is we install a rib nut into this, which does require drilling. It uses a 3/8 drill bit and a rib nut tool. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a silver Sharpie, mark these holes through the bottom, and we'll go ahead and proceed to installing the rib nuts. So now that you've Sharpied these hole locations onto your factory valance, you will wait till after the diffuser is removed to drill those locations. But we're gonna address these outside holes now. We're gonna use a 1/4" drill bit and actually just match drill through the hole, center it out, and then drill upwards into your factory valance, just like that. On both sides, you're gonna have 1 hole. They're the very outmost holes. I'm gonna go ahead and do that to this side. Those will not be receiving rib nuts. Only the 2 holes that we did earlier will. And we're gonna go ahead and now we're gonna have to take the diffuser off and install our rib nuts. So now that the diffuser is removed, we're gonna go ahead and drill these locations that you had marked with the silver Sharpie earlier with a 3/8 drill bit. And we're gonna go and use our rib nut tool. We're gonna thread the rib nut all the way on here and place the rib nut tool through the hole and clamp it down. Shouldn't maybe need 1, maybe 2 squeezes. That's it, nothing more than that. So we're gonna go ahead and finish this one and then go to the other side and install this one. So now that we have our rib nuts installed on both locations, we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the diffuser, again using the silver screws, starting from the middle one. And we'll go ahead and get that one started. So now we're gonna grab our 2 1/4" bolts that originally had the rib nut threaded on them. We're gonna go ahead and throw them through these second row of holes into the rib nuts you just installed in the previous step. We're gonna go ahead and get both sides started, not tighten, and we already showed you how to install these 3 in the previous step. We're gonna go ahead and redo that process as well. So now the next set of hole we're gonna be installing in these hole locations is gonna be the outside ones. Is a 1/4" bolt. We're gonna have a lock nut, a washer, and then a spacer, a black spacer, a real skinny one. We're gonna go ahead and put the bolt and the washer combination through the bottom, through the spacer. The spacer is gonna sit right between our diffuser and the factory valance. You're gonna want to thread that through there. You might have to get a screwdriver to help you push through the top if you drill the hole big enough. And you're gonna install this lock that you're gonna reach into the exhaust tip location and get it started. Again, this isn't a lock nut, so once you tighten it with the Phillips head screwdriver, you can use an impact or a drill. You don't have to hold a wrench on the top side. It does have little locking teeth that hold the bolt in location. So now that we got all the hardware on the base of the diffuser installed, they are not tight, they're started. We're gonna go ahead and work to the metal section of our diffuser. There's 3 bolts that are left. They actually connect to the standoffs we installed earlier in a previous step. You gotta leave all the previous hardware we installed loose, because this will need some adjustment back and forth, forward and back. And we're gonna go ahead and grab the bolts that we took off of the stanchions earlier. They're all 1/4", they're all the same, they're real short. Big washers and lock washer in between the 2. And you might need to move the rod, the standoff that we installed earlier. You can reach around, you might need to move it to position this hole that we already have pre-drilled in the correct position. So you're gonna put the bolt, lock washer, and the large washer through the bottom of the diffuser and into the threaded part of the standoff we installed earlier. So we're gonna go ahead and do that in this location and this other location on the other side. So as I mentioned earlier, we can use an impact or we can use a Phillips head screwdriver. It just take a little longer. We're going to work from the middle, working our way out. Again, double checking that the positioning between these two are all even. Start by tightening these silver screws down first. Working out to the 1/4 bolts that go into the rib nuts. Make sure you don't tighten those too much because you will spin the rib nut on the top. It's actually better to use a handheld screwdriver for that one. And then we're gonna work to the very outside one that has the lock nut on the top. Like I said, it does have locking teeth, so you don't have to get a wrench on the top side, but you might have to hold it with your finger until it starts to touch the plastic with the lock nut. Just like that. And then just a little bit more. That's fully tight. You don't want to go past that. It'll just squish the plastic. Same thing on this side. And now we're going to go to the final 1/4 bolt. It is going to be 1.5 inch. You're going to go ahead and tighten this one up just like that. Next, you're going to use 11mm socket to tighten those short 1/4 bolts that we installed on those 3 standoffs. I'm going to go ahead and use a little ratchet just like that. Half turn past hand tight just like that. Go ahead and go to the very front one, tighten that one, and our install is complete.